Anxiety is one of the most common mental health challenges facing Canadians today. In fact, nearly 1 in 4 will experience it in their lifetime. But what we often don't talk about is how deeply anxiety is connected to other mental health conditions like depression, trauma, and even physical health concerns. In Canada, where long winters, cultural diversity, and increasing economic pressures shape daily life, anxiety doesn't exist in isolation. It weaves itself into relationships, workplaces, and family systems. Today, we're not just going to talk about anxiety as a standalone experience, but explore how it intersects with other struggles Canadians face. Because understanding anxiety in context, in the whole picture of mental health, is the first step toward breaking stigma, finding balance, and building communities that support healing. So welcome to Beyond the Surface. And once again, I have the honor, the privilege of having Dr. Daniel Saugh with us. Welcome, Daniel Saugh. You came right from Burman University. I'm so glad you're here with us.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, Rebecca, and I hope.
And I'm so happy that we have a topic that's so important, anxiety and other mental health conditions.
Definitely.
We're going to watch a short narrative, and then we're going to come back to discuss the topic.
Sure thing.
So let's watch it together.
What is wrong with me? I thought it was anxiety. That's what the doctor said. But it seems like there's more. I struggle to fall asleep at night. My mind races with worries. When I try to think of solutions, all I come up with are worst-case scenarios. If I manage to fall asleep in the middle of this waking nightmare, I always wake up too soon. I'm so tired all the time, yet I can't seem to relax. I feel the need to keep moving, to keep busy. But at the same time, it's so hard to concentrate on anything. It's hard to settle in and start something. Before I even begin, I battle thoughts that I won't do it well. I won't measure up. I'll fail somehow. And then comes the darkest question of all. What's the point? This question drags me down. I don't have an answer. Lately, I haven't been very sociable. Every time I come home, I rehash the time together. I go over conversations and comments like a broken record. It stresses me out to think that I may have said or done something wrong, that people may have misunderstood me, that they may be judging me. It makes my head hurt. I feel safer when I just stay home, on my own. I feel safer, but not really better. I want to move past this, but I can't. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do.
Welcome back. So Dr. Daniel Saugh, we saw someone who's experiencing anxiety, but also seems to be experiencing depression as well. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting relationship that exists, or shall I say coexists, between anxiety and depression. One may engender each other, and also they can be independent of each other. So I don't want to call them codependent. That's another
That's another topic right there, right?
all by itself. But they both are almost parallel. So in most cases, clinically speaking, that I've discovered working with clients, many people who have depression often exhibit anxiety or anxious symptoms or anxiety symptoms. Then people with, of course, anxiety also exhibit or display some depressive symptoms. However, one may be more prominent than the other. So that's how I like to look at it. Are they all equal? No, because it all depends on the person's situation, right? But if they do exist together, it's almost like compounding a situation. So when we talk about anxiety and depression, we see that as depression with anxiety is a comorbidity. And there are certain, conditions that are related to anxiety, and we could call them comorbidities as the term is used in our field, as you may know. And so not only is there depression, but I would also suggest you may also someone may develop PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. As we know, that is a deep type of psychological based trauma that has visible symptoms such as withdrawal and, of course, reactions and shock, etc. And then thirdly, another emerging comorbidity would be, I would suggest, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, where people are repeating certain actions, having intrusive thoughts, and that they are behaving in a way that is uncontrolled, and so they're obsessed and using compulsive activities to do something, to recheck something, to retrace something. So that has to do with anything related to anxiety or depression. So we notice that anxiety it can be a precipitant to other comorbidities and also complement, to use the word, other comorbidities.
And why do you think it's important that we talk about these correlations, these combinations?
Yeah, I think it's important because we need to understand that everyone's different. So there's different complications and complexities of an individual. And of course, we got to look at someone's history, where they are presently. We got to look at family history. That's important. When you go to see the doctor says, tell me a little bit about your family. Do you have a history of X, Y, and Z, cancer, heart disease, etc., mental health? And that's important. So if someone has a family history of anxiety or depression, that makes someone predisposed or susceptible to, developing further anxiety. It takes the particular trigger or factor that will, cause that to emerge or surface. And I think it's important to understand too, because the more someone has self-awareness, the greater ability they would have to develop coping capacity going forward.
That's very interesting. So sometimes we do better with stories or narratives. Can you give us like some sort of an example of someone, maybe we saw someone with depression, maybe someone with either OCD or PTSD, someone who had anxiety and developed those. What would that look like in someone's life?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. And in my experience and years with working with clients, but also particularly working in the military setting and police setting, I see a lot of that. So, for example, in the military and police setting, uniform type of service, many of the men and women who face trauma and anxiety due to the nature of their work, they may witness a criminal activity, some type of atrocity, a killing, a shooting, domestic violence. That creates the trauma. And then, of course, when we talk about anxiety, when they come to a situation like that again, so they get a call, a 911 call to a situation that they have witnessed initially, then that can in and of itself produce anxiety. And so I remember speaking and interviewing a particular officer, and they told me that every time they got a call for this particular situation on violence or child pornography, etc., or abuse, it would trigger something within them. They would almost, I don't want to say become incapacitated, but it would cause them to think twice. They would think about their own life, think about their own children. So we see how powerful a thought can be. A thought can actually motivate someone, and it can demotivate someone. A thought can help someone, or they can hinder someone. So it's important to be able to recognize it and be able to put it in its right category, because if not, it can spiral out of control.
It's really, really interesting example. And I think it helps people who are watching if they are experiencing not only anxiety, but other symptoms that don't seem to be connected.
That's
they
right.
know that they're not alone, right?
They're not alone. Absolutely. And I think that's a key point that you raised, that you're not alone. Referencing that police officer that went back, they told me that many times they would even have sometimes flashbacks, or it would be so difficult that after addressing the call subsequently, they would come back and cry. They would break down. They needed a safe space. And they said to me, the person said to me that this is the first time that someone took the time to listen to them, to create a safe space, an outlet for them to, what we would say, verbalize and to vomit. And I think that's very important. So someone who has comorbidities, it is complicated. So we need to address them one at a time, and I would call it, deal with it by isolating it first. So you've got to isolate the situation. So you can't say, okay, we're going to treat anxiety and depression, or anxiety and PTSD, or anxiety and OCD. I think you need to address the root cause first. So when you find the causative factors, we got to identify them and be able to address them one at a time, and then be able to associate them with tools that can help therapeutically in the healing process.
That's incredible, because you're going to do it one thing at a time.
Yes.
But you're first going to look at the roots, right? What's
That's right.
leading that person to experience maybe anxiety first, and then whatever comes from that.
Precisely. Because you know what, if you avoid that roots, then you're essentially just covering it up, right? And so what's happening, as we use the term compounding the problem, it's almost something like the snowball effect. You've heard the snowball effect, all that little snowflake, and then you keep rolling and rolling, and it's building and gets bigger and bigger, and the impact gets greater and greater. So what we need to do is slow it down a little bit and help the person recognize first by taking a deep breath and saying, okay, where are you right now? Take an inventory. And be able to say, okay, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be, this is where I don't want to be. So creating almost like a therapeutic map, a map for themselves, right? It's like this. I remember that question, as children growing up, we're traveling and they ask the question, are we there yet? You know what? And they complain and they murmur and they're sweaty and hungry.
I was that person when I
Yeah,
was a
me
kid.
too, I think. And when we get to the destination, we forget about all of that. So the key, I believe, is keeping your eyes on the destination, beginning with the concept we've heard, the end in sight. So if someone says, okay, this is where I'm at right now, but you know what? Tomorrow is going to be a sunny day. Tomorrow is going to be a beautiful day. Tomorrow I'm going to create something. I'm going to go and do something special for myself. Looking at the destination point, the end point is very important. It's almost like a race. And life is like a journey or a race. And if we keep looking behind us, we will become maybe depressed. If we look ahead of us, before us, we'll become depressed. If you look beside us, we'll lose motivation. But if you keep your eyes on the finish line and run toward it, we're more likely to stay focused and motivate ourselves to go forward.
It's a powerful example. And I really appreciate how you're showing the hope behind the treatment, right?
Yes.
And how psychotherapy is tailored for that person.
That's right.
And I don't think psychotherapy is the only way to get better, but it's definitely individualized, focus on the person that needs to help them walk through that process.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, and I think so. And we are so, shall we say, blessed. We have a plethora of resources and tools and techniques and interventions. Psychotherapy is really powerful. In fact, I have to tell you, one of the reasons why I was inspired to go into this area and to address psychological issues and mental health issues. Firstly was, and this is just a moment of self-disclosure, I have a family member who suffers from or has to manage mental health, and been doing so for over 2 decades, and it's been difficult. And they have their highs and lows, their ups and downs. Sometimes you go forward, sometimes you get stagnant, but you don't give up. You don't quit. And I'll never forget the powerful story of Dr. Viktor Frankl. You've Probably heard of him.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning, that
book
classic
was-
book we want to recommend to our viewers. If you haven't read it,
Yes.
take a read, get a hold of it. It's on Amazon. You can find it, Google it. But it's so powerful. And long story short, his traumatic experience that he went through, the anxiety, the depression, the comorbidities, he had an ability to look within himself, but also visualize what tomorrow will look like. So by visualization, he thought to himself, one day, I'm going to get out of here. One day I'm going to give lectures and help other people. They sought to imprison him. They imprisoned, and I'm paraphrasing, they imprisoned his physical body, but they couldn't imprison his mind. And so, of course, he did suffer physically and mentally and psychologically. However, because of the will to live and the desire to go beyond his circumstances, that willpower, I believe, kept him going to the very end. And eventually, of course, we know the story that, of course, the Axis forces surrendered and they were released. And he, of course, went on to become a world-renowned psychiatrist and co-founder of the School of Logotherapy, Psychotherapy in Austria, Vienna. So just in Vienna, Austria.
That's a powerful story. Thank you so much for reminding me of this
Yes.
incredible journey of Dr. Frankl. We need to go for a quick break.
Sure.
So I'm going to invite us to take this break. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after the break.
In a Canada facing uncertainty,
We believe there's more to life.
from mental health to faith journeys,
From finding purpose to discovering love's perspective.
Hope Channel Canada brings light to life's deepest questions.
Because there's more to your story.
Hope Channel Canada, there's more to life.
Visit hopetv.ca.
Welcome back to Beyond the Surface. And before we go back to our discussion, I want to take some time to thank Hope Channel Canada and especially thank our agents of hope. Without you, the show wouldn't be possible. And if you're interested in becoming an agent of hope and supporting shows like Beyond the Surface or even future episodes of Beyond the Surface, please do so. The information is on the screen. And now I'm back with Dr. Saugh. We're talking about anxiety and how it connects to other mental health conditions. Can we talk a little bit about resilience in face of anxiety, or maybe some strategies to face anxiety?
Absolutely. There's several strategies one can use, but one of the very helpful ones and impactful ones, shall we say, would be mindfulness. So, you have different things like mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. Mindfulness is where you're specifically engaging in activities that is focusing and refocusing the mind on a particular object or thought. It could be a amazing proverb. It could be a motivational statement. It could be a maxim. It could be focusing on the sounds of nature. I think that's really important. Another important intervention is nature-based therapies. So there's something called ecotherapy. You've heard of that? Nature-based therapies. And part of that, I said it in another episode previously, one called forest bathing. So walking through nature, through the trees, pathways, hearing the sights and sounds, seeing the sights and hearing the sounds of nature. Taking deep breaths where, trees of all of its varied kinds, such as deciduous and evergreens, they release aromatic compounds. When we breathe that, actually, it not only is healthy for our respiration, but it also is relaxing. And it creates a sense of calm. It de-stresses us. It actually downregulates stress. And so there are very important interventions here that needs to be included when dealing with anxiety and its corresponding comorbidities. So I really think that if we don't do something and if left the chance, the situation is compounded and, as I said, exacerbated, and it can become so destructive, it can lead someone to a very dysfunctional life.
You need to be intentional to have those strategies, right?
Correct.
And I like to call it back to the basics, right?
Yes.
What are our basics? Nature,
Nature.
health,
That's right.
pure air,
That's it.
grass,
That's
right?
right.
Those kinds of things that.
Yes. There is this acronym that people often use. It's called New Start. You've heard of it, right? And it has to be dealing with, natural, like, lifestyle factors. Some people refer to them as the 8 doctors. So N is for, of course, nutrition, healthy nutrition. Why is that important? Because what we eat is what we are, what we become, right? It's like our vehicle, right? You get a vehicle, we always remember that first vehicle we bought, and of course we paid attention and we opened a glove compartment, we read the owner's manual. No, we did not. But the owner's manual tells us what's in there to ensure the best optimal performance for that vehicle. So what we put in, what we feed ourselves physically, but even what we feed our mind. Right? So it doesn't have to be physical food, but what we're feeding, the content in our mind. So that is really important, right? So nutrition and exercise is important. Movement, there's a new, wave, a trend called movement is medicine. We have nutrition, food is medicine. Now we have movement is medicine. So we need to move. What does moving do? It increases circulation, but also blood flow, microcirculation to the brain, oxygenation. And that helps us with our psychological and mental health. And water, that's another important thing. Why is water important? Well, we're about 70% water, right?
Yes.
And here you go. Let me join you right here, right? And the body needs it for metabolic functions, but the brain needs it. And when someone is dehydrated, it affects their mental state. They can get delirious and dizzy and agitated, so very important. Then you have, of course, the other S word, sunshine. So vitamin D is important for, of course, our physical health, for our metabolic processes, for bone development, but it's also important for brain function as well. We don't realize that. So really important. And of course, T, of course, we know what T is. Of course, we have temperance, the old word for being moderate in all things. So temperate in our physical and in our eating, in our diet, in our lifestyle, being temperate. If we overindulge or overdo something, it can have negative effects, right? And of course, air, fresh air, we just talked about it. Breathing fresh air is important because oxygen to the brain is important and throughout the entire body, right? So we need that fresh oxygen air. Then, of course, rest. A lot of people don't realize how rest is important. And the body repairs itself during that rest period, especially if I've stayed up for almost 24 hours, and guess what? The next day, I feel groggy. I can't think straight. I'm not focused.
Your body's not meant for that.
Yeah, it's not meant for that. So the brain needs rest so that we can be mentally fit and have that, ensure that we're getting optimal health and proper thinking, right? Because thinking is affected by a lack of rest. And then finally, the last one is trust in the divine, or trust in God. And we talked about spiritual resources, which we will come back to later on.
So we'll come back to them, but before we do, we're going to invite Pam and Mike to share their insights into today's episode. So welcome, Mike and Pam Tucker. We'd love to hear from you.
In an earlier episode, I shared with you that for a time, I sought psychiatric help. And there was a time that I needed to have medication as well that would help me navigate the different experiences that I was going through. It was perhaps called environmental depression, but it was everything that was bombarding was just overwhelming for me. One of the things that I found that was so beneficial, even after the loss of my father, was finding a group of women that would be a support as I walked through this journey. And I was absolutely opposed to it. I did not want to share with anyone. I didn't want to open myself up to anyone. And yet I met a group of women in early 2020 who have become sisters to me, who we have walked that journey. So my anxious moments, they're praying for me. My sad moments, they're praying for me. And so I really, truly encourage you to find a good Christian counselor and find a group of women or men that you can be real and honest and share what you're going through.
Now, women are better at that than men are. Men don't usually do that as well as finding a group of men where they share together. It's tougher on us. Women do intimacy better than men do. If men have an intimate relationship, it's because they've married well. Usually there's only one in their life, maybe two if you're really fortunate. So men are going to have to be more intentional about this. And it may be that you'll just Men talk better when they do something. So it may be that having a regular golf date with a buddy who will help you through this is good. Someone to just talk about things. And we usually do it in short bursts. So in between shots as you walk to the next ball, sometimes that's the best way to do it, where you share just a little bit here, a little bit there, but it begins to relieve the tensions. What I do know is this: no amount of regret is going to change your past. No amount of anxiety will change your future. But a very small amount of gratitude will make a tremendous change for today. So if you find yourself anxious, what I encourage you to do is to focus on the things you have and to be grateful for them. The things you've had in the past, even though some of those are things that maybe you've lost, but you have a loss because you had it in the first place.
Right.
And be thankful for that which you've had. Be thankful for the hand of God on your life. Be thankful that your future is in His hand. Gratitude can help relieve your anxiety. Share with others, but live a life of gratitude.
Thank you so much, Mike and Pam Tucker, for your insights. And if you want to share anything with them, Mike and Pam, you can write to info@hopetv.ca. That is our email. Anything you want to tell us, you want to share your stories, you want to give us feedback, you want to give us comments, please do so by writing to this email. And I'm back here with Dr. Saugh. So we had that piece on trust in God, and you were going to say something. Please, I want to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is so important. Some people beat themselves up so much because they feel that they are the problem. But the person is not the problem. The problem is the problem. We got to learn to dissociate the problem from the person. I am not the problem. I have a problem, but I am not the problem. People need to engage in what we call self-compassion, self-forgiveness. There's a movement called kindness. It's called the kindness movement. I don't know if you've heard of it. And they have conferences and all of that. One of my colleagues, who's a chaplain in the police service, he leads this in many ways as a foremost expert. And it's a kindness. So being kind to oneself is so important going forward. Now, other areas we talked about. Nature-based therapies, meditation is very important because these things help to develop the capacity and going back to resilience. That is essential. And I want to say, what are the benefits as we close? Well, some of the benefits of both these resources, including spiritual resources, has to do with reduce anxiety symptoms and comorbidities. Absolutely. Then number 2, you have an increased sense of purpose and meaning. And that's important. And then you have number 3, improved quality of life. That's essential.
Wow, what a wonderful way to wrap us up. I cannot thank you enough, Dr. Daniel Saugh, for coming all the way from Burma University in Alberta to spend some time with us, showing us different ways of experiencing mental health conditions and finding resilience, hope, tools. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to having you in future episodes.
It's my pleasure and privilege. It was an honor to be here with you all. Thank you.
And thank you, because you were with us throughout this episode, and I'm very excited to tell you that we have future episodes coming too, but I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching us, and I really hope to see you next time.